Do you make the majority of your money from just one client or by selling just one product or service? Well, don't worry. I'm going to show you my 5 top tips to help you turn this around to minimize the risk for you and your business. I'm also going to show you what I've learned from 30 years in business so I can help you not make the same mistakes I made all those years ago. So if this sounds like you, then I want to highlight just how dangerous this type of business model can be and make you aware of the potential risks to the longevity of your business. And I don't mean to scare you when I say this or make you feel inadequate. I just want to show you how you can turn your business around to give you a business that will give you security and longevity. My name is Richard G-Cornell, and this channel is dedicated to helping people create their own destinies through business. Now, I've been in business for 30 years, helping brands sell more of their products and services, and this has given me a deep understanding of how to start, scale, and promote businesses effectively. But most importantly, I will show you how to cope and succeed in your business whilst enjoying it along the way. Now, I remember when I started my first business 30 years ago. It was the best feeling in the world, and even though I had no clients when I first kicked off, I was so hell-bent on trying to get my first client, just so I could actually say that I had my own business and now I was working with this great client, right? And when I did land my first client, I was so stoked that I put everything into servicing this client, and over the course of the next few months, I started generating income, okay? And I felt rich, and even though I was only a few months in, I didn't put too much pressure on myself by worrying that I could lose this client at any time, so I just focused on keeping this client so I could keep them on as a regular source of income. But after a few months, business was humming along nicely, but I noticed that I was spending all my time on this client, and this was jeopardizing my ability to get out there and simply get more clients because I had no time left, right? So to say that I started to get worried, it was an understatement, okay? It was constantly on my mind, and I was so scared that if I lost this client, then I'd have to start all over again, and this would really be tough. So this client not only took up the majority of my time, they actually started spending big money, and even though it felt great, I just felt really insecure as I literally had no time to get out there and get more clients. So what happened next, it almost ruined me. You know, my worst fear did come true. My client got bought out by a bigger company, and I was told that my services were no longer needed as they already had their own teams who could do the work for them. So after receiving the news, I was so devastated. I was only 21 years of age at the time with no life experience, no business experience, and I just didn't know what to do. But after a week or so of soul searching, I knew what needed to be done. I put this, put such a massive dent into my confidence that I felt depressed for the next couple of weeks. But not only my confidence was shattered, now I had no money coming in and I had to start from the beginning. But what this did do was teaching my first valuable lesson in business, and that is that you can't have all your business eggs in one basket, okay? But I licked my wounds, so to speak, and then worked out a plan of attack. So this would never happen again. I got back on the horse, and this time things would be very, very different, which brings me to my first lesson. Lesson number 1, do my work at night and then use my days to hunt for new clients. Now, I know this doesn't really, work for all businesses, but in my line of work, I was fortunate enough to have this option. I worked so hard during my nights to do all the work, and really all I had to do was sacrifice my time. Now, in the whole scheme of things, this sacrifice was not really a sacrifice, but more of an insurance policy. By working overnight, I was still able to attend the meetings or phone calls with that client during the day, but the bulk of my day's time was getting out there and just hunting like crazy for more clients, and it actually worked, right? I was selling like crazy, calling new prospective clients, setting up meetings, presenting my pieces, pitching, quoting, ultimately signing up new clients. I did everything, right? Now, although this sounded easy in theory, it wasn't, right? I was actually working about 16 hours a day, but it proved to be very worthwhile in the end. Now, this only secured me more clients. It actually relieved a massive burden and stress. I felt more secure in my business, and it also gave me the ability to do whatever it took to ensure this would never happen again. And with winning new clients came working longer hours. And this got to the point that I simply didn't have enough time to do the work anymore, as the workload was now just way too much to handle, right? And this is what led me to putting on my first employee. And it was someone who could do the hack work, so to speak, so I could get out there and sell more of my services, okay? And this brings me to my next valuable lesson. Lesson number 2. Educating my clients that they don't just have to do business or rely upon me. Now, after I added my first employee, I was then faced with other hurdles or fears, right? I was then so worried that my clients were so used to only dealing with me, and now not only the work, but now I also had to worry that they may not like working with this other person, and not because they may not like my employee, but because they might have thought that I just palmed them off to someone else, who's got lesser capabilities or enthusiasm. So to combat this, I was so careful to keep in constant communication with my clients just to reassure them that I hadn't forgotten about them and that they can always feel comfortable in calling me for anything at all at any time. And I also trained my employee to work with the same set of standards, right, and guidelines as the ones that I applied to my business. And this worked like a treat. But what I also learned was that my employee wasn't me and that they had their own set of skills which could also add value to my business. And my clients also saw this. And that also gave them the reassurance that they not only worked with me and another employee, they worked with a brand and a business that set the tone for their expectations, okay? And this started humming along perfectly. And what this also provided me was the ability to reduce the amount of hours that I worked overnight whilst being able to focus on selling my services consistently during each day. Which brings me to lesson number 3, implementing reoccurring revenue streams. Now, as time progressed, I found that having just one employee who was the only one responsible for producing the work, they weren't able to make enough money for the two of us to survive, okay? And this really started to get me down because I thought things were going pretty good, but everything was going in the right direction and stuff, but I wasn't picking up new clients quick enough and my expenses were getting out of hand and clients' decision-making process was taking time, and to add insult to injury, we started going through some very challenging times, right? Where some clients were not spending consistently enough like other months, and the rise and fall in this income that I was generating, it was starting to be a massive roadblock for me progressing. Now, something needed to be done about this and done fast. So I found that for me to add my second employee, I needed much more than simply chasing new clients. I needed to future-proof my income with adding services which gave me additional ways to make money with the small 2-team business that I had. But I didn't just need to add new services, I needed to implement services which provided me with reliable income each month at the same guaranteed amount. And when I looked to see what I could offer them, I looked at services which complemented the other services I already provided them, right? So I came up with a couple of new income streams that were not only cost effective, they were also income streams that added value for my clients. And in doing so, I added services which were a combination of both time-based services and also knowledge-based services, right? So the time-based services meant we had to do a certain amount of ongoing work each month, right, to help them promote their business. And the knowledge-based services, or income stream services, that enabled my business to provide consultancy to them, advice, right, things that would complement my creative and promotional services. Now, all of a sudden, my business really started to make inroads. I had the money coming in from my creative and production services. I had other income streams coming in from our ongoing promotional services. And the third income stream came in from my consultancy services. And this was all whilst I was still operating with just me and another employee. But it didn't last for long, as now we were bursting at the seams and our growth started to continue, right? But as my new business grew, I grew with a more sustainable business that pushed me through a lot of the quieter times as well. So it gave me a lot more confidence that I was actually going to be able to weather this storm. Which brings me to lesson number 4, applying fixed term retainers, okay? Now, for some reason in my early days, I never really liked the idea of retainers. I always looked at them and I was worried that, these retainers would not be beneficial to me. I was concerned that my clients would either complain that they were paying for services which, didn't really provide them enough value for the money, because in some months we'd do more or less work than others. And I was also worried that if I agreed to a fixed term retainer and the workload increased, then I would be stuck working much harder for less. I didn't want that. So to combat this, I proposed to my clients that we work for a 3-month period by the hour. Then at the end of the 3 months, we add up the work for the hours spent to come up with an average monthly fixed retainer amount. And this worked perfectly, right? It also gave my clients the confidence in knowing that they had already evaluated the workload and they didn't have to worry about months, where the work was more expensive than others. So I was so pleased with this way of doing business that now I could actually forecast how much one employee could produce and how much ongoing revenue it would generate for me without worrying that I might lose the work overnight. And to this day, we still provide fixed term retainers for our clients, and it's such a great method to operate in this way. There are so many benefits for both parties involved, and it just takes the whole stress out of it all, right? You can rely on what's coming in and out. And lastly, lesson number 5, selling additional services to existing clients. Now, you've heard that saying, right? It's much easier to sell to an existing client than trying to sell to a new client. Well, it's so true. Now, once you've formed trust between you and your clients, then they're more open to seeing what else you can provide them to help them with their own businesses, okay? And I really quickly realized from early on that this took my business to a whole nother level. I now look to see what other services I could add to my business, which I didn't know how to do, but I could employ people who could do this for me, who were, say more experienced than me, right? So then I added these other services from development to advertising services, and in time my agency became known as a full service digital marketing agency who specialized the whole spectrum of digital services. Now, my clients quickly saw opportunities here to increase their budgets with us because they relied on advice, and more importantly, they relied on our agency to keep them informed of new methods, new techniques to help them raise the bars in their own businesses. And I did have to add more employees, and even though the initial investment hurt financially whilst I was waiting for the additional income to come in, what it did do was to set the foundation for the brand of what it is today. And when I look back, even today, and I look at my clients and see the services that we provide them, what's really fulfilling is that I'm constantly reminded that my business is the go-to business for my clients. When they just want to pick our brains for a new product or service, they're wishing to do a new launch, they rely on not only me, but my team to do the work to come up with ideas to help them. And this is where the true value lies in having more well-rounded services, which not only help us make more money, but help us retain our clients for much longer periods of time. Really important. So this might sound all, easy and applicable to a service-based industry, but what if you have a business that sells products like, say, clothes or food or something like that, right? Well, the same rule applies here, okay? So let's look at the first example. Say you sell clothes, and for the point of this exercise, let's just say you sell t-shirts, okay? Well, you need to ensure the following. Firstly, you could sell t-shirts to both males and females. It means that your audience is not limited by half the audience. You can also sell t-shirts online to global markets, so you're not limited by, say, weather constraints where it's colder, for argument's sake. Or you can introduce other products, I should have said, like pants, shoes, sweaters, and so on, right? You can see what I'm going with this, right? But the last thing you want to do is to be laser focused on selling just one product, especially when you have a captive audience who would be likely to buy more of your products should they already like buying your t-shirts. Now, let's look at selling food, right? And let's say you have a hot food stand in a business district where office workers come and buy your Italian pasta during the day, but sometimes they don't want to eat pasta every day. How could you get that same amount of customers to buy your food without always having to order pasta? Well, you could sell them Italian paninis or Italian salads. You could sell other Italian dishes which use the same ingredients as the pasta, but now have the ability to be turned into something different, right? You can see where I'm going with this, okay? And let's say your shop is only open for, say, 8 hours a day. Then what about the other 16 hours in the day where you're not making money? What could you do to sell more Italian food after hours? Well, you could do this, right? You could make pre-packaged Italian pasta dishes so the workers could take their pasta home for dinner. You could start to take regular orders for busy professionals. You could offer your clients discounts if they refer a friend for their dinner orders, and the list goes on. Now, the rule in this type of business is to be able to sell as much as you can in a given day without any restrictions, especially in this scenario where the business owner is paying their rent for 24 hours a day, but is only selling their food for a third of the day. Now, if you can look at your business and see what are the products or services that you could provide to your existing customers, which complement your current business offering, right? Something you're already doing, then I can tell you that you will enjoy multiple income streams and much more opportunities for success. Now, I'm not saying that only selling one product is bad, right? As there's many businesses out there that have built up a successful brand name by doing just that. But what I'm trying to emphasize here is that there is more than one way to skin a cat. And if you can provide some variety which is still in line with your core business offering, then you will have much more security and ultimately more ways to generate income. So the key takeaways here are: don't just rely on one client or one income stream. Look to sell more products to existing customers. See what other products or services that you can provide that will complement your current business offering. Add income streams which are retainer-based or on fixed-term contracts. Don't be the only one in your business that everyone relies upon. And lastly, see what you can do to give your business more opportunities to make money, regardless of time restraints. Now, this wraps up my video today. Let me know in the comments below if you're worried about having all your eggs in one basket and only one revenue stream, one income stream. Also, please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this, as I have a heap more coming. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Cheers.